Welcome to Stay Curious, everybody. I'm your host, Mark Marquette. My co producer, Marty Winkle's on the other side. And we're inside our Apollo Gallery at the American Space Museum, where we're broadcasting right behind this door right there in downtown Titusville. Hello, Marty. Thanks for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mark. How are you?
Good. Did you see any astronauts today?
So, Ken Cameron,
Ken Cameron, great Buckeye, of course, there.
also Marine.
Huh? And a Marine,
Yeah.
fellow Marine, 250th anniversary of the Marines on Monday. We'll be celebrating that as Marty's a Marine, and we'll figure out how many astronauts are Marines. Hoorah! And in fact, we had a lady Marine commander not too long ago. Uh, Man was her first name. She on
Jessica.
yeah, Man on the one of the Crew Dragons there. So interesting show today. We're going to celebrate the life of Rick Hauck, who died at age 64 on Thursday, November 6th, yesterday. Interesting how I heard about that, and we sort of broke the news on that last night. And then the contract for the Lunar Module by to be built by Grumman was given today in 1962. And we're going to look at what 63 years later, what they're thinking about taking to the moon. But because Marty Winkle, my co-producer, worked on the lunar module with Grumman as one of the lead electrical engineers, we're going to talk about the lunar module, one of my favorite subjects. And let me get this right. I hadn't said it in a while, Marty. The only spacecraft ever built to be operated standing up in the vacuum of space, and designed to land on another world and lift off that other world and only operate in a non-atmospheric environment.
Vacuum of space.
The vacuum of space. That's right. So, Marty, get your pointer together because we're going to go out to Kennedy Space Center. We're going to look at a few early concepts. We're going to look at how complicated this was to lift off the moon, and give all of our Grumman people some love today. So, also, Saturday, if you're local, tomorrow will be the memorabilia show at Hyatt Place here in Titusville at the 405 that goes into Kennedy Space Center. And it has been a day. I didn't even get to line up a couple of pictures I wanted to send because something about our internet connection here and it wouldn't go from my phone. But we had the horseless carriage people here from driving their cool little cars here for a tour. We had Edward Jones doing a Medicare supplement seminar in our conference room, and had launch director Mike Leinbach bop in here and sign some of his books I had here, and drop off a bunch of signed launch and landing photos that were so gracious that Mike did. And and Ann Miklos was here. So a big, beautiful morning, and got a lot to get ready for the memorabilia show tomorrow, but it'll happen. Just show up, and things usually do happen good. So let's kick off here. We're talking about the celebrating Mr. Captain Hauck there in the lunar module contract of 1962 today. And there to the left is one of the concepts of it in 1962 that we have in our museum right above my head. And that's one of the images I took that didn't get emailed to me for some reason from my phone. I couldn't find any close-ups real close, but this is a rare artifact of the space age that we have here in our museum. It's made of wood, and it's in photographs where you see Grumman and NASA VIPs huddled around it. And this is what it became on the far right. That's one of the images that's on a beautiful poster that Steve Jochum sent Marty that we have on display here. So let me see if we're broadcasting, Marty. Did it come up? There we are. And so I can see you beautiful people watching us today. And Marty, you can give some comments if you want. I see Gary Gerald and Rosalie Jubilee. Hope to see you at our show tomorrow. Cliff Watson, good morning down in Pomona, Australia on his Saturday. Mitch Rothman's up there at Man Space in colorful Colorado. He says, "Hey, Steve Jokums. Yes, we are very sorry to lose Rick Hauck, a true American hero in many ways. And he'll be known for one special flight we'll talk about in a minute. Carlton Bailey, howdy, howdy to you, buddy. Great show yesterday with Carlton, showing us 4 missions of November that he launched. Each one had a little different angle or twist from the top of the VAB to a landing, even the Space Coast carrier going overhead. So, uh, uh, and yeah, I don't know if he says Mark misspoke. I know Hauck was 84, whatever I said. Uh, we posted it last night. Uh, And yes, we know the Chinese have damage to and space debris to their capsules. So my gosh, there's going to be a big drama that's not going to play out in the press because the communist regime of China will not want to shed a bad light on this. So, like I said, we're going to talk about going to the moon. And over, I tell kids this is our moon ship, not too Star Wars or Star Trekky looking. Only in the conical shaped command module and the top part of the lunar module can the astronauts live. And here's the separation going down to the moon in a beautiful piece of artwork there. Rick Hauck was born April 11th, 1941, as Frederick Hamilton Hauck in Long Beach, California, but he considered Winchester, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. to be his hometown. He was chosen as the 35 new guys. All right, one of the 35 new guys. There he is, not too many years ago, wearing the iconic STS-26 return to flight patch. He was also the senior astronaut of the 35 new guys. And that was in January 1978. 35 new guys, and of course 6 girls, women included in that. He educated in Washington, D.C., a Bachelor of Science from Tufts, a Bachelor of Science in Physics from Tufts University in 1962. Then he got a Master of Science in Nuclear Engineering at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and then went into the Navy Test Pilot School in 1971. Captain Hauck, after being chosen as an astronaut, was quickly in the queue and flew as pilot with Bob Crippen on STS-7, the first 5-person crew. Of course, noted for Sally Ride being on board there. And here is Hauck. Move forward. There's not Hauck. That's one I've got out of. We'll see this again. This is our moon ship, or one of them, we think. All right. There's Hauck in space. Love that. Free floating around up there. Not much room in the shuttle to fly like Superman. Okay, like astronauts do on the space station, but there he is, free flying, big, fancy, happy smile, noted for his mustache that he didn't have later in life. Of course, he wrote a book last year, To Mach 25 and Home. I mentioned that the other day, the Mach 25 patch only astronauts have, quite valuable. I don't know anything about this book, Marty. Do you? I get a sip of courage here.
No, I don't. I have not read it.
So I know we will be soon and so forth, checking that out. And if, let's see, anybody have any anecdotes? Celentano says he met him a couple times, was quite a hero. We also have his handprints in the museum. Okay, they were, and there's no note that Charlie Mars had about how he gathered those. There's no where or when in Charlie's little Harvesting the Handprints book. He did most of the ones we have, 35 that we have on there. So, what was very interesting yesterday, Marty, as we look at Hauck will always be remembered as the commander of the return to flight of Discovery after the horrible Challenger accident. He and Dick Covey there in the foreground there with Lounge, Hilmers, and Nelson going to space and returning Earth's dreams of building the space station and all of the work that it's done since then. So Hauck will be remembered for that for sure. One of my favorite patches too, very iconic patch. I got a text from one of my friends and said that Hauck had died at about 6 o'clock. I checked the internet, nothing on the internet, Marty. So I'm going, huh? The old reporter that I used to be came out inside me and said, I got a scoop here. With respect to the family, of course, somebody's going to publish it first, so why not me here on our Facebook page? Well, you want to confirm it by two sources, but I happen to know my source would have had it confirmed by one or two other sources for sure, so I went with it. And wouldn't you know, it is one of the biggest Facebook posts we've ever had, over 1,000 views of it, just hundreds of shares, and last time I looked, something like 70 comments or more on there. In fact, I do have my phone here to look it up, but I won't take the time to do that. But just happy that we could share it in a nice way with people out there, because someone was going to start talking about it last night, and it might as well have been us. So God bless Rick Hauck and his family. And no details about what he died of at this moment. I do know a couple things I'm not going to share with respect to the family, but Rick Hauck definitely, of course, in the Astronaut Hall of Fame, and will be remembered in all the annuals of shuttle history as one of the pioneering pilots and commanders of our fabulous fleet of space shuttles. Okay, that is my favorite contractor logo, Marty. The beautiful Grumman blue and gold, okay, which is my high school colors of Findlay, Ohio. It's also that state up north, that team up north of Columbus, way up there. They're blue and gold also, but just a cool Grumman, of course, known for their cats, the Hellcat, the Tomcat, the airplanes that they built. And so they were kind of outside the box to build something to go to space, because they'd never built anything to go to space, right, Marty? When they got the contract, it was North American got the command module. So tell me what you know about that, Marty.
Well, I know very little about it, Mark, because when that was given, when the contract was given, I was just graduating high school then.
Yeah, you're graduating high
Yeah,
school.
so I don't know much about it.
Well, the selection of Grumman to build the Apollo lunar excursion module was made on November 7th, 1962. It was announced that the Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corp had been selected to build it under the direction of the Manned Spacecraft Center, later to be called the Johnson Space Center in Houston. The contract, still to be negotiated dollar-wise, was expected to be worth about $350 million, with estimates as high as $1 billion by the time the project would be completed. Now, this is 1962. How much is $350 million in 1962 money? Well, just take it 10 times, basically, 3.5 billion. All right. So, and it could be as high as 10 billion. All right. Now, the entire Apollo program was about 40 billion in 1960s money. So they did it within the estimates, of course. NASA Administrator James Webb, in announcing this selection, basically said this seals the deal for lunar orbit rendezvous. The controversy was, do we go launch from the Earth and directly land on the moon and then launch off the moon in that same spacecraft? Or do we break it up into some pieces and orbit the moon and rendezvous with a spacecraft in orbit around the moon? And that won out. And Webb said, we are affirming our tentative decision of last July in favor of the lunar orbit rendezvous approach. And they claim that over 700 scientists and 1 million man hours were put in to make the decision between the direct landing that Wernher von Braun initially supported or the lunar orbit rendezvous that the Iowa physicist named, I'm escaping me right now, but someone will remind me of who. Humboldt was the gentleman that came up and had to convince and actually went above his boss to make the argument to Wernher von Braun that lunar orbit rendezvous is the way to do it. And that is taking what you saw, a command module, a lunar module, landing the lunar module on the surface while the command module is orbiting. Then the lunar module is also in two parts and comes up with just and leaves the base on the surface of the moon. So let's talk a little bit about that because it's fun to look at the lunar module. I should have brought a model in here, but harvested some great artwork where concepts were being made in the 1960s of what this would look like. Notice that the mountains of the moon in this artist's interpretation are very jagged and sharp. Not the case. They're beat down by micrometeorites and therefore had some soft fluffiness look to them there. And we're going to talk in detail, or I hope my friend Marty will, about separating all of the electrical and the piping between the first stage and the second stage, or descent stage and ascent stage, I should say, of Grumman's lunar module. Peeling the skin away, it looked like that. Now, the contract was given in 1962 in November. And this picture on the right is lunar module number 3, Marty?
3, yeah.
3, orbiting the Earth on Apollo 9. They had tail numbers, and this was number 3. And that was in, April of 1970? So, no, November 69?
68.
I mean, 68, yes. Yeah, November 1968. So from the time the contract was given in November of 62 to the spring of 68, it was little less than 6 years, okay? 5.5 years to develop this and finally put it in through its paces, and it was miraculous. Everything worked well. 5.5 years, okay? And the development of what NASA originally contracted the Starship, it's only had, 10 flights and a year and a half of development. This is not the lunar module. This is the Lunar Module 1, LM1 of Russia. This was their side view of their lander, okay, that actually was like very narrow and tall and long legs on it. And that port on the right-hand side is the astronaut would be looking out at as they landed. Kind of like, I'm not going to say a motorcycle compared to the LEM, but it was more of an agile, very tight built unit there. But they were going to blast. It wasn't going to separate. The engine on the bottom was going to lift it off the moon. And there's lunar module tail number 9, the real artifact when it was hanging at the Kennedy Space Center Saturn V building for over a decade out there like that. Very cool to look at, and the real deal. And several of you watching today have had the privilege of seeing Marty Winkle taking you around that. We're going to see it here in just a second. This is what we did land on the moon 50-some years ago. This is what the two vehicles that are now vying to return to the moon, the 200 foot tall and 38 feet wide Starship on the left of SpaceX, and the Blue Origin's about 120 feet tall, something like that. Still pretty tall. Um, uh, I don't think that's that tall. It's probably about 50 feet compared to that person down there. Blue Moon is what they're calling it. So because the SpaceX lunar lander is so far behind its development, acting NASA Director Sean Duffy opened up bids for a new lunar lander. That's why I'm spending some time on this. And that was one of the concepts right there. That lunar module right there with an astronaut looking at it in a cool little diorama. And guess what? We have one here, right there. There it is in the left. Sorry, I don't have a close-up picture of it. Above my head's about as good as we're going to get, but it does look just like that. You'll see another one. Go ahead, Marty. Yep, there it is right there. All right. And it's got some damage to it, but still with some of the damage on the balsa wood in the back, it's probably worth $10,000 to $15,000. And as director of the museum, I'm wondering if that should be on the floor like that, Marty, because we've had kids in here over the years. I'm just amazed that they haven't tripped and someone fell over it. We need to put it in a plastic.
I was just gonna say, we need to get one of those plastic bubbles.
Yeah, we really need to buy a plastic case for that.
Yeah.
Somebody want to help us spend the money on that? We'll be glad to get your help there. But there's a beautiful picture of it taken in a studio setting. We have that real deal right there. And there's many famous pictures of some scientists and engineers in suits of Grumman and NASA huddled around that. And Don Davis, well-known astronaut for his caricatures and Christmas cards. This was his interpretation of landing on the moon. And not too bad of a one, except that the moon is not craggy and sharp like the Rockies, where Mitch Rothman is. It's more soft and beat up like the Appalachian Mountains, where I lived. And just because I threw in there, this is what Johnson Space Center's lunar module looks like out on the grounds. This is an old picture from maybe 8 years ago. But as fascinating as the lunar module is in such a one-of-a-kind vehicle, Marty, I really wish that there was like a playground version like this is, that you could really get inside. And Kennedy Space Center's got mock-ups of the Mercury and Gemini capsules that you can just kind of sit in like a bench, and there's no controls or anything in it, but it still gives you an idea what the feel of it is around you. Well, here it is. Beautiful Lunar Module 9 was going to be used for Apollo 15 and wasn't. And why was that, Marty? They didn't use this module for Apollo 15, though it was built and ready to fly, because they were going to take the lunar rover on 15, right. And this descent stage did not have the quad set up for the lunar module, right?
Yeah, it wasn't set up for what I was trying to think of the term extended duration vehicle. So,
okay. Well, to watch Marty talk about let's talk about it here. Close up of it. You got 3 different materials there. You've got mylar, you've got Kapton foil, and you've got Inconel. Okay, so Inconel, point out the Inconel, Marty. That's a heat-resistant steel. All of this is used today on spacecraft. The Inconel is the gray, and then the Kapton foil. There's more Inconel there, and Kapton foil is that, and then the mylar is the gold. And quickly, the difference of them all.
Well,
why don't they just use one all over the thing?
But certain areas of the vehicle would sustain more heat than other areas. So you want the Inconel for that type of area, and under that you have mylar also. And then it could handle more heat than you had the Inconel, and then just plain mylar. There was a heat barrier also, but there's also a micrometeor barrier.
Okay.
That's why the Mylar was, in most places, was 25 layers of Mylar.
All right. And you all have any questions about it there? Um, uh, looks like Steve's correcting me again. What did I say? I said Huntsville is where the outdoor thing was. But
Well, I thought you said Johnson.
huh? Well, I know it's in Huntsville. So having a rough day here, brother. Okay. So no script, no teleprompter off the top of my head on a busy day that we're grateful for here at the American Space Museum. This version here, this is the real deal, and you could not. Marty, if I wanted to walk up and down that ladder, what would happen?
Well, if you're on the moon, nothing would happen.
Aha,
But on Earth, you would probably, well, you would damage it.
I'd break it because it was designed for the 1/6
1/6
gravity
gravity.
of the moon on there. Great, great. All right. Um, so this was what I always found fascinating looking at the back of this is the exhaust vent in the back here. That black area, Marty, if you use your thing to show where the ascent stage exhaust comes out of. Yeah, that's something you don't see on models depicted very well. But they actually had an opening for the exhaust to come out. I thought you would need all that power to get off.
It comes out of the sides also in the front, but most of it's coming out the rear end.
Mm-hmm. And that's why you see the top part on Apollo 16 when they turned it around for inspection before docking. That uh, is that titanium?
No,
What's
it's
the,
aluminum.
huh? Aluminum.
Aluminum.
That aluminum was curled up, all right, from the exhaust, whipping it out, which was kind of a scary thought to see in there. And Marty, you jump in there anytime. And of course, that's what I want. Is I want to stand inside of this. Now, there's a pretty good replica in at Johnson Space Center in Houston. All right, that I've stood you can kind of stand up and look, but you're not. I kind of want one where you're looking out in the void of space or on the surface of the moon. But anyway, it's kind of hard to. But Marty, that's familiar territory to you for sure. There's your old workplace.
Oh, extremely familiar.
And I see RG Jubilee's asking you a question. See if it's
Well, the windows are not black.
they just look dark.
It just looks dark.
They just look
Yeah.
dark. All right, here is what we're going to the moon in maybe. All right, there is your 200 foot tall by 38 some foot wide Starship. And then on the right hand side is the, what was it, 27 feet tall, Marty?
Well,
Somewhere
I
like
think it's
that.
20, 23, I think.
And almost the same width of a spread on it there. And we've had 3 vehicles land on the moon that are taller than they are wider, and they all tipped over. Okay. Here's the blue moon, artist's rendering of it on the moon. A little bit less of a height to width ratio there, a better ratio there, of course. Still nothing like the lunar module. All right. So Artemis 2 challenges. One of them is the Apollo lander was 30 feet high, 20 feet wide. The human landing system, that's what we're calling what we're going to the moon, is 30 feet wide, but it's 150 feet high. Sorry, I was saying 200. Tip over and blowback of foreign object debris are big issues, okay? And the other Artemis challenge on this slide that, in fact, you'll see this when Jay Honeycutt comes here to talk about this one day, is the Orion spacecraft is in a 6.5 day polar orbit. 6.5 days, folks, whereas the Apollo command module was in a 2-hour orbit around the moon. So if something happened to the astronauts on the surface, it all depends on where Orion is, if they could blast off and get to Orion in time. So it might take 6 days or it might take a few hours, depending where it is in this very elliptical lunar orbit over the poles. So the main issue, though, they're worried about the blowback. Okay. All kinds of things hitting, rocks coming back up into the engines and damaging maybe the strut landing gear, whatever. So this was all thought out on the lunar module and tested uh, uh, on twice on two occasions in Earth orbit on Apollo 9, and then in lunar orbit on Apollo 10. And uh, all of the astronauts really said it flew great. It was easy to maneuver. It was a lot of fun. And here again, the skin taken back, you see some of the things going on there. 4 quadrants is what they called those quads as you walk around from the landing gear there. So very complex. And as we look at one on the moon there, I believe that's Apollo 14, I think is what that one is. Look at all the Inconel gray on the back and the Kapton foil on the left of it there. This is I know it's not, see the blast shield. Marty, why don't you point out that blast shield? That was on the RCS.
Oh, you mean
That's real plain right there. It's like a little slide that comes down from the reaction control. And
you can see that one right there.
yep, that one there too. Yep, you see the other one in front of you there. So those were added after Apollo 11, were they not?
No, after Apollo 10.
After Apollo 10, okay.
No, wait a minute, after 9, I'm sorry.
All right, after 9, all right. And I love looking at, this is at Bethpage, where it was manufactured and then sent here in pieces. But just think about all of that on the surface of the moon, all right, having to be protected from 200 above zero, 200 below zero, radiation, cosmic rays, and keep 2 humans alive in there. Now, the oxygen tank that keeps them alive is one of the smaller tanks there, isn't it? In fact, on the left-hand side is one of the cheeks of the there that has the fuel in it. What fuel did they use, Marty? Do you remember?
That was hypergolic.
Okay, hypergolic fuels in there. Of course, hypergolic fuels, because there was just one valve that they opened on the engine, and the hypergolic fuels hit and ignited, and away it went. All right, a question or comment, Marty?
I got a question from Mosley Park. He's asking, what is the height of the ceiling in the LEM? And the ceiling is curved to some degree. Back then I was 5'7", and I think I may have had, I'm guessing maybe 8 inches above that. So it was probably, I'm guessing maybe 6 foot, 6.5 foot maybe.
Wow.
But then it tapers down when you get to the sides, which you don't need to stand there. You can't stand there anyway.
Well, I love looking at these engineering pictures, and they mean so much to the history of our program. But, Marty, I'll have you talk a little bit about this. These are all of the pyrotechnic explosive devices around this lunar module. All right. Buried in here are a bunch of charges. I want to say explosive charges. Explosive charges. Elaborate on that a little bit more in your expertise, Marty.
Yeah, I looked it up one time to see how many pyros we had on there, and I forget offhand. But I know we had the 4 nuts and bolts around separate the atom from the decent proper, but you also had pyros on the landing gear, which is spring loaded. You had for the tanks, fuel tanks.
Yeah, spring loaded landing gear. Yeah. They were tucked in
Yeah.
the slaw, and when they got, they had to fire pyros to make them swing out. Yeah, that's something you don't think about.
And one of the major ones, obviously. Well, they're all major. If you lose pyros, in any area, you're going to have a problem.
But the
But
most
you got
amazing to me
is
is
the
this one.
guillotine,
There's your
and
guillotine.
that's separated mainly the wiring and plumbing from the ascent and the descent stage, and they
So,
all go off within milliseconds of each other between nuts and bolts and guillotine.
and you were involved with that a lot. You had two explosive devices on each side
Yeah.
just in case, right?
Right.
How thick is the pipe that those wires are going through?
I'm not on camera, but it's probably, I'm guessing, about 1.5 inches wide and probably 3 inches maybe in length, maybe 3.5 inches.
In length
But,
and
it's stuffed with cable.
but a lot of stuff is going in. So those wires were kind of thin then.
Yeah,
They're
mostly.
not like an electrical wire of a household appliance. They're more like a wire in a radio or
Yeah,
something
but there's
like.
different type of insulation around it also. It's not like the wiring on the radio or TV.
Uh-huh.
It's I mean, I think some of them were, if not all of them, were Mylar wrapped also.
Well, at an arbitrary, well, not arbitrary because they're timing it with with the command module orbiting over. So they have a time when they want to get off the moon, but they do a 3, 2, 1, hit liftoff, and within a fractions of a second, right, Marty, this guillotine has to explode and shear all of those connections, right?
Yeah, the guillotine plus the nuts and bolts and the tank set.
Yeah, and on the corners, and that's symbol. Yeah. In other words, all of this stuff here we're talking about, this connecting the ascent to the descent stage, and then the wiring going through the guillotine have to go off within a tenth of a second, something like that, of each other. Even a half a second would create maybe something bad happening. And what was your nightmare, if you will?
My nightmare was, and it happened more than one time, is we're getting ready to leave the moon. You do abort stage, nuts and bolts fire. If something happens to the guillotine, and the ascent stage just tips over due to the guillotine not firing, and ascent stage obviously crashes into the moon.
Yeah, and this was so cool to watch with the remote camera that was on the lunar rover on 15, 16, and 17. That was a big thrill to be watching that in 1971 for the first time. And it popped off, and man, did it go quick up there. And this is Apollo 14 looking out the window as the shrapnel and so forth is spraying away. Apollo 11 looks a very similar picture also to that. And there's your Grummies up there. And was this a Kenny or Beth Page? That's probably Beth Page.
No, it looks like the ONC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is because we were
Because
looking for you in
You
there.
didn't have all the aluminum, all the Inconel on it.
You worked the
Beth
night
Page.
shift, and this was the day shift.
Yeah, but it's also in the ONC, so depending on what lunar module it was, I was only in there for LEM 3. The rest of the time I spent out on the pad.
All right. The rest of the time he was out at the pad in on top of the Saturn V rocket in what they call the slaw, which is either the Saturn launch adapter or the spacecraft launch adapter.
It depends who you talk to.
Okay. And Vision Marty inside the lunar module, while it's the whole 365-foot tall rocket swaying back and forth. You did that, right? Through some storms and stuff?
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was scary. I mean, I could just envision. You could. I don't know how far it was swinging back and forth, but I could definitely feel it, and it felt like it was moving a plus or minus a foot either way. And I just wanted to get the heck out of there.
How about the noise, the creaking? Was there a noise?
No.
No?
Well, we had fans blowing in the cabin, so you
Uh-huh.
wouldn't hear anything.
Great stories from Marty Winkle, lunar module electrical engineer for Grumman, and then later worked on the space shuttle main engines and the the launch process services. And this is what you got for your service with Grumman there. This is actually Scott McLeod's, and we've talked about this a couple weeks ago during the auction. One of these was for auction. I didn't catch if it went or not, but easy $1,000 there for this beautiful replica that Marty was handed as a attaboy, right?
Yeah, it was Employee of the Month award, which they gave out very seldom. And I really think I would have gotten the Silver Snoopy if they were giving Snoopies out. I think at that time only one Silver Snoopy was given out. But I saved, you know, I saved damaging the lunar module. I saved not scrubbing the launch or delaying the launch. So in my mind, it deserved a Snoopy, but again, never got it.
He should have. He needed a good manager to recommend him. There's Chris Callie, disguised as Jacqueline there. Hi, back to you. Yeah, he can visualize Marty crawling around in there. Isn't that cool in there?
And Gary Gerald has a question.
Uh-huh.
And Gary's asking, what is the condition of the crew compartment of LEM 9 now? I don't know. You can't get close enough. You definitely can't, like Mark said, you can't climb the ladder to look inside. So there's no way of really checking it. So I have no idea. I'm assuming the panels are still there. I really don't know.
Yeah, you can't really look inside of it very good, but yeah, that would
You can't
be.
look at it at all. It's just
Maybe
too,
you could get
it's just too
permission
high.
to get in there one day, Marty. That'd be cool. Well, we're winding up our little program here. The contract for the lunar module was given out in 1962 on November 7th, today in space history. And we landed on the moon for the second time 7 years later with Apollo 12. We'll be talking about some of that next week. So the first lunar lander, 6.5 years after this contract was given out. Takes a little bit of time to create a lunar module that you can have confidence in. Now, of course, technology today, we're not reinventing or inventing things along the way. But if we're going to go to the moon before 2030, do we have enough time to develop a lunar module? Well, Blue Origin says they've got a dummy lunar blue moon together, a demonstrator type that they could maybe land on the moon uncrewed. And we'll see if that happens in the next year. Go ahead, Marty.
Brian 3825 is asking how was the camera there on the moon, and then later on he's asking, hold on a sec, who controlled the camera on the moon? Was it remote? And I'm assuming he's talking about the camera literally on the moon, not the one that they had inside the cabin.
Yeah, on the lunar rovers.
Yeah. Well, no, I think he's talking on the LEM itself. On the MESA package, when Armstrong comes down the ladder,
Yeah,
and there's a camera there, well, that camera was mounted on the MESA,
right.
which as you exit the lunar module, be on the left-hand side. That's the package where the tools were, where the scoop was, and other tools that the astronauts needed. And and like Mark said, there was a camera on the rover, and that was remotely controlled. And I don't know if there was an override for the crew to control it.
But
I
no,
don't
it
think
was
so.
controlled by Johnson Space
Yeah.
Center, not the astronauts.
I don't think there's I don't think it's an override where the crew could control it.
I don't think so,
Restricted
except
in.
just to pick it up or push it around or something. Yeah, it was attached. They had to have set it on the lunar rover at some point, possibly, but yeah, that was controlled. In fact, they had to have a joystick and give it a second lead to have it follow the ascent up there. So thank you. And Cliff Watson says he's extremely proud of meeting you, Marty. And who isn't, to talk to a man who's got his little grubby hands all over the lunar module. Of course, he had gloves on those little grubby hands there.
And I'm proud to meet Cliff,
Yeah.
my Aussie buddy.
RG asks if how many times did the engines knock down the flags. We don't know. Actually, we do know that I think all the flags were still standing, or the poles were, because they could see the shadow cast by them. But
I think Apollo 11. I think
yeah,
that one fell over. I think on subsequent missions, I believe they moved the flag further away.
there you go. There you go. Thanks for watching today, everybody. And I'm always happy to talk about the lunar module with Marty here. And just a couple other slides. You got to show the beautiful picture of the Apollo. Oh, I'm not. I think this is. I'd hazard to say Steve Jokums has got them memorized. That's probably 16 now, or maybe 15. Beautiful panoramas taken on film. All right, the lunar rover there. And I saw a funny thing on Facebook where somebody is arguing that we didn't go to the moon because how could you get a car on the moon? That lunar module wasn't big enough to take a car to the moon. And that person's right. It's origami. And this whole rover was folded up and put in quad one, and like a Murphy bed, which none of you know what that is, but it's a bed that was in the wall, and you pull it out down, and there's your bed, and that's sort of how they did it, right, Marty?
Yep.
And there's a great demonstration of that at Huntsville at the U.S. Rocket Center, where they had a couple docents there that were very involved in the development of that. I believe Marshall did the most of the development. Go ahead, Marty. You got something?
Yeah. RG Jubilee is asking, what does the Snoopy look like? So, Mark, why don't you bring a Snoopy in for the next show, maybe?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll show you the Snoopy Award, and we can do that on there. Maybe a week from Monday when Nick Thomas comes. He was an award winner, the Snoopy Award. But yeah, it's a little silver Snoopy. It's Snoopy running. The Peanuts character Snoopy, kind of like when he's running with happy feet, and it's very small. These is your full moon that you've all been getting some moonshine over the week, and that is the 6 landing sites, 4 of them along the equator, and 2 of them, up a little bit above there, 15 and 17, and but we're going to land at the poles, something we've never done before, more like around the equator like this instead of going like that. That in itself might have some anomalies, as when Apollo 11 landed 2.5 miles from its target, they discovered the moon had mass concentrations of gravitational lumps in it that slowed down and speeded up the lunar module, called mascons. And it was just heavier areas where lava had pooled up under the surface. So who knows what we're going to discover when we go over the poles. And of course, NASA, we couldn't do without NASA. There's the worm, the worm and the meatball combined there, which I kind of like. But nonetheless, there it is for you that like it or not. And that's one of my favorite pictures from the surface of the moon, Marty. Can you point where the lunar module 16, or let's see, it's Apollo 16, so that's LEM 12?
11?
LEM 12 was 16?
It'd be 11, right?
Apollo 16's lunar module number was
11, I think.
11?
Yeah, 12 to 17.
12 was 17. Okay, this is, look at that. They're over a couple miles away. All right, I think it's like 3 miles away. Who wants to just say your ride home is that far away? What an awesome picture of our space age. Again, our spaceship, not our moonship, not very Star Wars or Star Trek-y looking. I gotta admit that the Blue Origin and the SpaceX, do look a little more modernized, if you will, on there. So, and glad that you're watching, Chris Callie, because we snuck in some artwork there for you. That's Chris's tribute to the Apollo program and Grumman. All right, this is a one of a kind that he did for Marty. Thank you, Chris, and thank you also for including Apollo 1. on your patches. I just hate it when I see a mug or a T-shirt about Apollo that just doesn't have Apollo 1 on there. And we should have it on there. So that's Gene Cernan on Apollo 17. That is a beautiful painting, not a photograph taken by our friend Chris Calley. So there you go, brother. You owe me. Okay. Uh, and and a couple people that made it happen. There's Marty with his good friends Roger Vizioli and Bill Waldron. Look up Apollo Lunar Module. Look up Bill Waldron. All right. Bill did 3 or 4 shows with us. Okay. And unfortunately, he's probably not able to do anymore, Marty, is he?
No, he's not.
And God bless him, but that's what we were all about. Bill was the chief engineer on Apollo 11.
No, he's an
what
engineering
you call
manager.
him?
No, wasn't chief engineer.
Oh, okay. But he was one of the managers that people had to, and some great stories there. That was a
He'd be more
picture
like
taken 5 years ago during the celebration.
he'd be more what they called on the space shuttle the flow manager.
Okay. And Roger's still you still see Roger, and what'd Roger do? Let everybody know.
He's mechanical design engineer.
Uh-huh. And so these are our national treasures that we're losing one by one, day by day, and so I love honoring you guys when I can, Marty. So there we go with today's show, looking at the beautiful lunar module tail number 9 at Kennedy Space Center, the real deal. I don't. I wish I could get. I wish it was closer. You didn't have to take the 20-minute bus ride and back just to see it every time. But though it's always fun to take the bus ride. But I can go out there and get an autograph of an astronaut, and if I feel like it, oh, I want to go out there and change my day. I'm going to look at Atlantis out there. And in 5 minutes, I can be under Atlantis and just kind of think, man, I know Mike Baker was the commander of that. That's so cool, and stuff like that. So, all right, go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, Brian 3825 says Apollo 11 landing was a miracle in itself. It almost ended up as a disaster. And I would say not true. It did not almost end up as a disaster. It was under control the whole way. And maybe, Mark, we can talk about that sometime. Maybe in July or sooner.
Yeah, exactly. What if you think it almost ended up like a disaster there, Bryant? It didn't, because of one person, Neil Armstrong. That's why Neil was chosen. He did have to take controls of the lunar module from that P-63, I think, and throw it into a P-64 on his desky or whatever the numbers were, and take control and fly over a crater that they'd never even seen in simulations because they were 2 miles further down the landing road than they had. And he hovered for a while. He knew he had plenty of fuel left. He's a test pilot. He knew exactly how much gas he had, and he did the right thing and set it down. So, yeah.
Yes, that's true about Neil Armstrong. He did all that. He did a great job. Possibly other astronauts probably could have done it also. It was a combination of Neil Armstrong and the Apollo guidance system, the computer system.
Yes.
Could not have done it without that.
Exactly. Couldn't have done it without that for sure.
And that's between both of them. You could say that's what saved the mission.
And he needed Buzz Aldrin there shouting him out details of where he was and so forth like that as he was surveying a completely foreign landscape that he hadn't trained for. And he was a hard trainer on that. So look at all the interest in this. Thank you all for watching it today. And got some good comments of that people enjoyed. Always looking back at this interesting chapter of space history, the most unique spacecraft ever built because nobody has duplicated it in 50 something years. All right, 54 years to be exact. When Apollo 17 landed on the moon in 1971 in mid-December, not been repeated. So thank you, Freeway of Other watching. Helene 411, thank you, Helene, for watching. Owe you a phone call. Chris Calley will be giving you a phone call, and from our memorabilia show tomorrow, probably. We got Bryant 3825. Tom Usiak, thank you, buddy, for watching today. Doug Forrest out there in California. Tom Celentano on the other side of our beautiful country in Connecticut. Neil 1030, Mosley Park. Carlton Bailey is just down the road here. Mitch Rothman, he's over the mountain far away, over there in Colorado. Steve Jokums at the beautiful, hope you had a great winter or fall season up there, Steve. And he and I are both Formula One fans, and I haven't seen anything yet today about the F1 events in Sao Paulo, Brazil, otherwise known as Interlagos. And Cliff Watson, hope you're hanging in there, brother. RG Jubilee, and my friend and yours, Gary Gerald, watching today. Stay curious. And Marty, one more from you on that UCAG family microphone.
Yeah, Mitch Rothman is asking, is it not true each LEM was programmed to land, but that each was landed manually? True. The lunar module could land by itself, and I'll say in theory.
Yeah.
But each commander did take control of it.
Yeah. If we got to maybe Apollo 19, they may have tried an automatic landing or something.
When you talk about
but no person, no pilot in their right mind is going to let a computer land when they're landed on the moon.
Especially a test pilot.
Yeah, test pilot. Yeah, I should say test pilot in there.
And Mark, if any of our followers,
but it could. It was absolutely designed, and we've done. God bless Bob Pearson, who taught me a lot about that, who passed away. But you're working on that program. He's going to work on the DESCI and the codes that were punched in, the verbs, the nouns, the numbers, and you'll be looking forward to that as we celebrate Apollo 12 this month, when we doubled down on President Kennedy's pledge to go to the moon before the end of the decade. We did it in July, and then we did it again in November with the wonderful Navy crew of Apollo 12. So, anything else, Marty?
No, just Mark, if any of our followers come to Space Center, come to visit us, and they want a tour of the Saturn V facility, I'd be happy to give them a tour, especially the lunar module.
There you go. Take him up on that. It's something you'll never forget. And are we layering it in as an event for Shuttlefest 5?
Yes, it will be an event.
Okay. And there'll be some details of that on there. So as we're putting Shuttlefest 5 together, it's amazing. We have a good program structured, and we're going to have a lot of astronauts. And I'm in discussions with so many of them. I'm also in discussions with other entities that bring in astronauts to figure out how to handle it, because they all want to say, I'll be there if I don't have a paid gig. Okay. And you can't fault them for that. All right, buddy. One more comment.
Yeah, one more. Brian 3825 is saying, thank you, Marty and Mark. Sorry for the misconception. And there's absolutely no reason to be sorry.
No.
It was a good statement, and just good information going out. So I appreciate your comment.
Yeah, thank you. There's no silly questions in space or astronomy, and I was full of them before I landed here 6 years ago. Actually came here 8 years ago. I'm working for the museum 6 years. I say if I knew have a gallon of knowledge right now, I'd be lucky to fill up a pint before I came here. Thing of just hanging out with people like Marty Winkle and all the others who did it, from Mike Lineback, launch director, to Marty and Apollo. This is an amazing institution to be part of. Thank you all for supporting us the way you do by watching Stay Curious, sending us some of your hard-earned money, as well as supporting us at other events, like our wonderful artist Chris Calley, who are waiting to get one of his masterpieces in the mail to put on our women's gallery. When we do that, I'll show you what that is when we get it here. So let you know when that hits the door here, Chris. So thank you all for a great week. And this was a day where I thought I was just going to one day I'm just going to turn the camera on, say, Marty, let's say hello and see what they got to say, because my days are getting jammed up with a lot of public relations and people that want to be part of our museum. We're blessed and we love that. So if you're local, I hope to see you at our this weekend here. So, anything else going on?
No, oh yeah, we have James Gibson's watching also.
Oh, James Gibson. Good. That's a new name. Saturn 5 100s there. Great shows. Watching from Rio de Janeiro. Yeah. Go Bartello. Yeah. GP Sao Paulo. That's right. Bortoletto. Well, let's just get him out of the. If he finishes maybe 15th or 16th, that'd be a good day for him there. But thank you all for watching us, and you newbies, keep watching and go back to your YouTube channel and check out some of these other shows that we've done on the Grumman Lunar Module. And if some of them seem repetitious to you, that's okay. We've done 1,400 episodes of Stay Curious in 5 years. So it's all because of you wanting this content and doing this, and it's all because I'm crazy enough to keep doing it day after day because Marty shows up and I got to give him something to do. So thank you all. We hope to see. I'm Mark Marquette. All right. And I'm happy to see you. And I hope to see you at the Hyatt Place this weekend at our memorabilia show tomorrow to bridge the space between us. Thank you.